And welcome to our Fields and Features segment. I forecasted a coronal mass ejection strike. It never showed up. I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong. It tends to be a learning experience. Let's take a look at some earthly magnetism. Here's Earth's magnetic moment for space for the past 4 hours. Earth's magnetic moment from space. So we see most of the pressure here in the magnetotail as the magnetic environment around planet Earth attempts to reach static equilibrium. So we've seen a weakening solar wind here over the past 24 hours. And there you can see some equilibrium being reached in the past 4 hours. That's magnetohydrodynamic pressure. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Changes to Earth's B field, geospace delta B. So no major perturbations going on. This will show things happening in times of geomagnetic storm and unrest. It'll show you where aurora are most likely, as well as the most likely locations for things like induced power into electrical grids, pipelines, and railways. Continuing on to look at the heliospheric current sheet, Earth is now in a North Pole current sheet. Seen over here in green, there's the North Pole current sheet. Here's a South Pole current sheet, which Earth has just left. Or you could say the current sheet has just left Earth, but in any case, we've got North Pole-oriented plasma at the moment, shown there in green. So here's a line of sight view. That was the top view ecliptic plane field plot. Here's the view looking across the ecliptic plane. Great view there of the both current sheets, really, since Earth has just crossed the boundary. And here's your GOES magnetometers over the past 3 days, showing some pretty spiky readings there. Again, we were expecting a coronal mass ejection from an event on the 12th, late on the 12th. And, well, what can I say? I was incorrect. Next, the Linocyte coronal hole plot. You can see the evolution here of solar cycle 25 as the solar polar fields are in the process of reversing, folks. It happens every solar cycle. The north will become the south and vice versa. So great view there of the National Sunspot Observatory magnetic data, showing the sun's B field in blue, North Pole-oriented coronal holes in green, South Pole ones in red. It's good times. Next, a great visual analysis here in ultraviolet light in the wavelength of 193 angstroms. Some well-defined coronal holes here, especially around the South Polar region and north of the equator there, moving into the earthly zone. So some significant coronal holes here may become geo-effective. There are high-speed plasma streams coming out of those, plasma jets, if you will. If you want to read more about solar jets, become a gold member. We just posted an article about it at smashamash.com/smashteam. So yeah, the Wolf number at 81 here, according to the latest data here from the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. Likelihood of major flares not that high, although we do have a number of beta-class sunspot groups. Make sure you tune into our bonus feature segment coming out after this, where we will look a little more closely at the field complexity. Here's a zoomed-out view, 1700 angstroms. Just a series of minor sunspot groups here. A lot of those are beta-class sunspot groups. We'll be keeping an eye on those, and when I say ion, well, pardon the pun. Sunspot 2941 still capable of producing major flares visible from Earth, as we noted in the past 24 hours. 131 angstroms is a great wavelength to view solar flares. It takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2, like 94 angstroms. So here's the X-ray flux over the past 24, and you can see this M-class flare happened at around 1810 was the peak flux there of that M-class flare. And we did see a minor proton event here, so some relativistic particles showing up. Looks like they may have leveled out here. They didn't really cause any polar radio blackouts that we expect. We don't expect them to have caused any polar radio blackouts. But a minor signal showing up there in the proton flux, some relativistic particles, as measured by the GOES 16. Next, the real-time solar wind. Current conditions are under 400 kilometers per second here, around 380 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed. Solar wind density about 5.5. Make it a little under 5 protons per cubic centimeter. So basically back to background conditions here. The coronal hole high-speed streams have subsided for the most part. Continuing on to the KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, it's at a KP2 for the past 9 hours. Happy full moon, by the way. Let's advance this 1 week. There's where things will be in a week on the 23rd. And we've put up a star chart as well. If you're up before dawn, you may see a planetary pileup. Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn rising ahead of the sun. If you've got a low horizon, great view of that. The blue line is the galactic plane. The yellow line is the ecliptic, the path the sun will take across the sky from Lehigh Valley. And let's take a look at some coronal mass ejections. Spectacular imagery here from Stereo A and from the LASCO C3. So we've got a sun-diving comet or two. At the same time as this coronal mass ejection happening. We showed this from a little different view from our HelioViewer movie earlier. And these are the kind of ejections that can cause major geomagnetic storms if this really, really dense plasma. Check out this dense plasma. See how far outside the corona it is and how dense that still is? That is the kind of thing that if it strikes Earth causes massive geomagnetic storms. Could cause trillions of dollars worth of damage if earthly directed. However, it's not earthly directed. Great view there from Stereo A. You can see all of that ejecta on the opposite side of the sun. Just a spectacular light show there from Lagrange point 5. So Stereo A located out here at Lagrange point 5. LASCO SOHO C3 located here at Lagrange point 1. Earth would be behind you from this perspective, and Earth would be off in this direction from the perspective of Stereo A. Just spectacular stuff here. Once again on the channel, congratulations on realizing we exist, and may that solar wind be at your back.